Tagwu Kim swiped his key card and entered the luxury suite. The door closed behind him with a soft hiss. After traveling 3 weeks by spacecraft, he was finally at the Galactic Summit Hotel on Proxima Station. His body ached from the journey, and his mind buzzed with the responsibility of representing Earth at the Interstellar Economic Conference. He dropped his bag on the polished floor and walked to the window. Space stretched before him, dotted with stars and the occasional transport ship. Proxima Station hung in orbit around a gas giant with swirling purple clouds. It was beautiful, but Towu was too tired to fully appreciate it. First human ever invited, he muttered to himself, loosening his tie. The gravity felt slightly off, calibrated for multiple species rather than specifically for humans. Walking felt like moving through shallow water. The room itself was impressive. The walls shifted colors subtly, creating a calming effect. The bed looked firm but comfortable, though Tawu noticed it was slightly longer than standard human beds. The bathroom contained fixtures he didn't recognize, with labels in at least 5 different languages. His stomach growled. The journey's food had been nutritionally adequate but bland. He hadn't eaten real food in days. Tawu found the room service panel by the bed. It glowed as he approached. Alien text scrolled across it, then shifted into English. "Welcome, Earth Diplomat Kim. How may we serve you?" He tapped the food icon, but froze when he saw the menu. Most items were completely unfamiliar, with descriptions like fermented hive larvae in methane sauce and crystallized gas bubble treats. Some entries were marked with warnings for various species. "Just give me anything edible for humans," he said to the panel. "Something that won't poison me." The panel flashed green. Order received. Delivery in 15 minutes. Tawu showered, changed into fresh clothes, and reviewed his notes for tomorrow's meetings. The first human at this conference needed to make a good impression. Earth had only joined the galactic community 5 years ago, and many older species still viewed humans with suspicion. Exactly 15 minutes after his order, the door chimed. "Room service," announced a mechanical voice. Tawu opened the door, expecting a cart of food. Instead, he found himself staring at a blue-skinned alien in restraints. The alien was slender, with 4 arms bound behind its back. Its skin was a pale blue with faint patterns that seemed to shift. Large, black eyes dominated a narrow face. A metal collar circled its neck, with blinking lights along one side. The alien wore a simple gray jumpsuit with a barcode printed across the front. "This isn't food," Tawu said stupidly. The alien's eyes widened. It looked up and down the hallway, then pushed past Tawu into the room. The door closed automatically behind it. "Please," the alien said in accented English. Its voice was musical, with clicks between words. "Help me." "There's been a mistake," Tawu said. "Why would they deliver you to my room if you're valuable merchandise?" Tawu asked suspiciously. "Low-level worker made mistake. They use service droids for regular deliveries. For special deliveries like me, they use workers who don't ask questions." Nari's black eyes pleaded. "When they discover error, they will come for me." As if on cue, the room service panel chimed. "Apologies for the delay with your nutrition order, Diplomat Kim. There was a processing error. Your food will arrive shortly." Tawu looked at Nari, who had backed against the wall, shaking. "They know," she whispered. "They track us through these." She jerked her head toward the collar. "But collar signals are blocked in diplomatic suites for privacy. Once I leave this room..." The diplomat's mind raced. If Nari was telling the truth, this was a massive scandal that could reshape galactic politics. If she was lying, helping her could jeopardize Earth's standing and his own career. He recalled his briefing. "Be cautious, avoid incidents, make a good impression." The safe choice was clear. Call security, report the mistake, continue with the conference. But he also remembered why he'd become a diplomat in the first place, to represent humanity's values, to make a difference. "How do I remove those restraints?" he asked. Relief flooded Nari's face. Key card on collar. Press twice. Taiwu hesitated, then reached for the blinking collar. He pressed the small card-shaped section twice. With a soft click, both the collar and arm restraints fell away. Nari rubbed her 4 wrists. "Thank you," she said. Her skin patterns shifted, displaying brighter blues in what Taiwu guessed was an emotional response. The door chimed again. "Room service," announced the same mechanical voice. Taiwu motioned for Nari to hide in the bathroom. She moved swiftly, gathering her fallen restraints. When she was out of sight, Taiwu opened the door. A service droid rolled in with a covered tray. "Your human-compatible meal, Diplomat Kim. Management extends apologies for any confusion with your earlier delivery request." "No problem," Taiwu said casually. There was no earlier delivery. The droid's lights flickered. "Our records indicate a delivery attempt at 1847 station time." "Your records are wrong." The droid was silent for a moment. "Understood. Enjoy your meal, Diplomat Kim." After the droid left, Nari emerged from the bathroom. "They suspect," she said. "They will check surveillance. Diplomatic suites don't have surveillance. Privacy protocols." Taiwu lifted the cover from his meal, something that resembled pasta with purple sauce. "We have some time to figure this out. Time is short. When shift changes, they will notice I am missing." Taiwu sat down, pushing his food aside. "Tell me everything. How does the hotel management get away with trafficking?" "This is a very dangerous situation, Taiwu," she said finally. "If what you're saying is true, this goes deeper than you realize. The Galactic Council would never allow such operations in their diplomatic hub unless high-level officials were involved. What should I do?" "Proceed with extreme caution. Attend your meetings as scheduled. Do not make accusations without solid evidence. And," she hesitated, "be careful who you trust." After ending the call, Taiwu turned to Nari. "We need evidence." "The collar," Nari suggested. "The Linaran specimens are particularly valuable," one guard was saying. "Their empathic abilities make them excellent companions for the emotionally stunted." The client pointed to a cell containing a blue-skinned alien like Nari. "That one. Have it delivered to my ship before departure." Taiwu continued recording as the transaction was completed. The client pressed his personal code into a panel and transferred payment. The guards entered the cell and placed additional restraints on the chosen Linaran before leading it away. "That's enough evidence," Taiwu whispered. "Let's go." They retreated through the duct system and made their way back to the elevator without being seen. Once inside his suite again, Taiwu transferred the video to his secure diplomatic files. "Humans aren't supposed to be this resourceful," Nari said as Taiwu bypassed the security on the collar to extract more data. "The others talked about your kind as primitive newcomers." "We're full of surprises," Taiwu replied, downloading evidence of multiple species being sold as specialty services to wealthy clients. The data showed hundreds of transactions over the past standard year. "I need to attend the first conference session," Taiwu said, changing back into his diplomatic uniform. "Stay here and keep the door locked." The conference room was grand, with representatives from 50 different worlds, seated according to galactic protocol. Earth, as a newcomer, was positioned near the back. Taiwu took his seat just as the proceedings began. The hotel director Valo himself opened the session with a speech about interspecies cooperation and prosperity. Taiwu watched him carefully, noting how other delegates deferred to his authority. During the mid-session break, Taiwu noticed a security officer watching him. When he returned to his seat, his tablet signaled an incoming message from Hana. "Station security has requested access to your suite for a routine inspection. I've delayed using diplomatic protocols, but they're insistent. Something has them worried. Be careful." Taiwu excused himself from the session early, citing human biological needs that the other delegates discreetly ignored. He hurried back to his suite, taking an indirect route to avoid security personnel he noticed in the corridors. When he entered his room, Neri was using his tablet. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Found direct connection between Director Valo and Galactic Council member Teku," she said. "Financial records and collar data show payments." Teku looked at the screen. Indeed, there were regular transfers from an account labeled T-Council to Valo's personal finances. This is why Earth was invited, Teku realized. They're planning something during this conference and needed all attention focused elsewhere. Yes, Neri agreed. While everyone watches humans make diplomatic debut, they finalize new trafficking routes. A subtle tone sounded throughout the suite, someone requesting entry. "Hotel security," announced a voice. "Routine inspection for all diplomatic quarters." Teku and Neri exchanged alarmed glances. The evidence was growing, but so was the danger. Teku thought quickly as security waited outside his door. He guided Neri toward the bathroom. "Hide in the shower enclosure," he whispered. "It's designed for multiple species. The privacy glass will conceal you." As Neri slipped away, Teku adjusted his diplomatic uniform and took a deep breath. He pressed the door panel, revealing 2 hotel security officers, one humanoid with gray skin, another with features resembling an Earth octopus. "Diplomat Kim," the gray one said. "Routine security inspection. May we enter?" "Of course," Teku replied with practiced calm, "though I'm surprised. My understanding was that diplomatic quarters were exempt from such inspections under Galactic Council protocols." The officers exchanged glances. "Special circumstances," the octopoid said, voice gurgling through a translator. "A dangerous fugitive has escaped custody in the hotel." "How concerning," Teku said, stepping aside. "Please, do what you need to do." The officers moved efficiently through the suite, scanning with handheld devices. Teku noticed they paid special attention to the ventilation system and under the furniture. "Missing someone important?" he asked casually. "Just a service worker who violated contract," the gray officer replied too quickly. Daho's quarters became their command center. Each brought different skills. Daho's tactical knowledge, Jai-Yun's trade network information, Neri's scientific insight, and Teku's diplomatic access. The conference schedule, Jai-Yun noted, displaying the official agenda. "Notice how all major sessions involving Earth are scheduled for the main hall." Teku examined the schedule, while smaller closed sessions happened simultaneously in the private chambers. Exactly. Jai-Yun's skin pulsed with amber lights. Earth's invitation was timed perfectly, a distraction from the real business. They accessed additional conference materials through Teku's credentials. Hidden in the technical appendices was a draft treaty titled Resource Development Initiative. The document outlined a massive plan to strip resources from multiple undeveloped worlds, including several near Earth's territory. "This explains everything," Neri said. "The trafficking provides luxury services to keep important officials happy while they sign away entire world's resources." Teku shook his head, and Earth was invited to give the appearance of inclusivity while the real decisions happen behind closed doors. "We need access to the hotel's central systems," Jai-Yun flashed. "If we can broadcast both the trafficking evidence and this treaty simultaneously to all delegates. The security around the central computer core is impenetrable," Daho growled. "Even I couldn't fight through those defenses." Teku thought for a moment. "Maybe we don't have to. Earth is considered technologically inferior, right? They won't expect sophisticated hacking attempts from us." He pulled out his tablet and began working. Earth might be new to the galactic community, but humans had developed creative hacking techniques during their digital age. "What are you doing?" Neri asked, watching his fingers move across the screen. "Creating a backdoor," Teku explained. "Every system needs maintenance access. I'm piggybacking on the room service network. It connects to every suite and public area." "Clever human," Daho rumbled appreciatively. Hours passed as Teku worked, occasionally receiving technical assistance from Jai-Yun, whose species had evolved alongside technology. Finally, his tablet chimed softly. "I'm in," he announced. "I have access to hotel communications, security cameras, and the conference broadcast system." Jai-Yun's skin flashed rapidly with bright colors. Her translator spoke urgently. "They've begun searching rooms systematically. They claim a dangerous fugitive is loose. We have perhaps 2 hours before they reach us." Through the security feeds, they watched as teams of officers moved from floor to floor, conducting thorough searches of every room. "We need a plan," Daho said. "A direct confrontation would fail." "We have the evidence and the means to share it," Ta-Wu said. "But timing is crucial. If we broadcast too soon, they'll shut down the system before everyone sees it." Nari, who had been quiet for some time, finally spoke. "The closing ceremony. Tomorrow evening. All delegates will be present, including the Galactic Council representatives." "Perfect," Daho agreed. "But we must survive until then. And we need to ensure the broadcast cannot be stopped," Jai-Yun added, her colors shifting to determined red patterns. Tai-Wu nodded. "I think I know how to do both." They formulated their plan carefully. Tai-Wu would attend tomorrow's conference sessions as normal to avoid suspicion. Jai-Yun would use her merchant credentials to access the broadcast equipment and install Ta-Wu's modified program. Daho would create a diversion if needed, and Neri would remain hidden in Daho's quarters, which had special shielding due to his diplomatic status. "What if they catch one of us?" Jai-Yun flashed. "The others continue," Daho said firmly. "The mission is more important than any individual." Tai-Wu looked at his unlikely allies, a reptilian warrior, a luminescent merchant, and a fugitive scientist. None of them had any reason to help him, a representative of a planet barely known in galactic politics. Yet here they were, risking everything. "Thank you," he said simply. "Whatever happens tomorrow, Earth won't forget your courage." "Courage is universal," Daho rumbled. "Even in species as soft as yours." Jai-Yun's skin glowed with gentle blue light. "Rest now. Tomorrow, we change the galaxy." The final day of the conference arrived with tension hanging in the air. Tai-Wu attended the morning sessions as planned, focusing on appearing normal despite his racing thoughts. Several delegates nodded politely to him, unaware of what would happen later. He noticed increased security throughout the conference halls, guards positioned at each doorway, watching everyone carefully. During the midday break, Ta-Wu received a message from Jai-Yun. "Equipment modified. Broadcast ready. Security increasing searches." He replied with a simple acknowledgement and continued with his diplomatic duties. The afternoon session included a presentation on Earth's economic potential, a session he now understood was merely window dressing. The real negotiations were happening in private rooms elsewhere in the hotel, where the resource treaty would be finalized before the closing ceremony. As the session ended, Tai-Wu spotted Director Valo entering the hall surrounded by security. The director's gray skin seemed paler than usual, and his movements were tense. Their eyes met briefly across the room, and Tai-Wu knew immediately that his cover was blown. He calmly excused himself from a conversation with a minor delegate and headed toward the nearest exit. Once in the corridor, he quickened his pace, taking the route he and his allies had planned as their emergency escape path. He had nearly reached the service elevator when a security team rounded the corner ahead of him. They spotted him immediately. "Diplomat Kim," the lead officer called. "Please remain where you are. Director Valo wishes to speak with you." Tai-Wu changed direction, moving toward a maintenance access door. His tablet vibrated in his pocket, the signal from Daho that Neri had been safely moved to their backup location. The security team was gaining on him. Tai-Wu swiped his diplomatic badge at the maintenance door, which opened reluctantly. He slipped through into a dimly lit corridor filled with pipes and conduits. He made it halfway down the corridor before he heard the door open behind him. Footsteps echoed as the security team followed. Tai-Wu's plan was to reach the central maintenance hub where Jai-Yun waited. From there, they could trigger the broadcast and then make their way to Daho's ship. But as he turned a corner, he found his path blocked. Director Valo stood there with 4 guards. Behind Valo was Neri, held firmly by 2 more guards, a new control collar around her neck. "Diplomat Kim," Valo said smoothly, "you've caused quite a disruption to our operations." Taewoo stopped, hearing the security team behind him close in. He was trapped. "Where did you find her?" Taewoo asked, nodding toward Neri. "Your craven friend is impressive, but not subtle," Valo replied. "We followed him to your meeting point. He's currently contained. The merchant, however, remains elusive." Taewoo felt a flicker of hope. If Jae-yun was still free, there was a chance their plan could proceed. "Your diplomatic immunity has been revoked, human," snarled Valo, stepping closer. "Such a shame your tragic accident will cut short humanity's galactic ambitions." "What accident?" Taewoo asked, playing for time. According to their plan, the broadcast would trigger automatically at the start of the closing ceremony, just minutes from now. "Maintenance corridors can be so dangerous," Valo said. "Pressure valves fail. Toxic gases leak. A horrible way for Earth's first galactic diplomat to perish." The security team closed in, weapons raised. Taewoo tensed, preparing for his last option. Humans were from a higher gravity world than most galactic species, giving them greater strength than many aliens expected. It wouldn't be enough against armed guards, but he had to try. Suddenly, the wall beside them exploded inward with a deafening crash. Through the dust and debris emerged Daho, roaring with craven battle fury. His scales were damaged in places, but his strength seemed undiminished as he grabbed the nearest guard and threw him into 2 others. Simultaneously, the corridor filled with blinding, pulsating light. Jae-yun had arrived, her body glowing with such intensity that everyone except Taewoo, who had been given protective goggles, was temporarily blinded. Now, Jae-yun's translator voice cut through the chaos. Taewoo pulled out his tablet and activated the final command sequence. Across the entire station, every screen, personal device, and communication channel would now be receiving their broadcast. "You're too late," Valo snarled, trying to shield his eyes from Jae-yun's light. "The treaty is already signed." "That just makes our evidence more valuable," Taewoo replied. In the confusion, Neri broke free from her distracted guards. She ran to Taewoo's side, pulling the new collar from her neck. "The collars have a design flaw," she explained. "If you know how, they're easily removed." The security team was regrouping, despite Daho's efforts to keep them disorganized. 3 guards advanced on Taewoo, weapons drawn. "Surrender, human," one ordered. "You cannot escape." Taewoo remembered his basic combat training. Earth's higher gravity had given him denser muscle tissue than most galactic species. He waited until the guard was close, then moved with surprising speed. The guard wasn't prepared for Taewoo's strength as he disarmed him with a quick strike and used the guard's own momentum to throw him into his companions. "Your gravity world biology makes you stronger than you look," gasped the guard as Taewoo disabled him. Meanwhile, throughout the station, delegates were receiving the broadcast. The evidence was undeniable. Video of the trafficking operation, financial records linking Director Valo to Galactic Council member Teku, and the full text of the resource treaty that would strip dozens of worlds of their natural resources without proper compensation or environmental protections. In the main conference hall, chaos erupted as delegates watched their screens in shock and anger. Many immediately called for security, only to realize that hotel security was part of the conspiracy. Back in the maintenance corridor, Valo realized what was happening. His communication device was flooding with incoming calls from outraged delegates. "You've ruined everything," he hissed at Taewoo. "No," Taewoo replied. "I just showed everyone the truth." Valo lunged at him with unexpected speed, a concealed weapon in his hand. Taewoo barely managed to dodge, feeling the weapon graze his arm. Before Valo could attack again, Daho grabbed him from behind, lifting him off the ground. The Craven Collective remembers its missing diplomats, Daho growled. You will answer for them. More security personnel were arriving, forcing the group to retreat. Jai-Yun flashed urgent patterns that her translator conveyed. This way, emergency docking bay. They fought their way through the maintenance corridors, with Daho taking the lead, and Jai-Yun covering their retreat with blinding light bursts. Ta-Wu and Neri stayed in the middle, Ta-Wu using his tablet to guide them based on the station schematics he had downloaded. What about the other captives? Neri asked as they ran. We can't leave them. The broadcast included the location of all holding cells, Ta-Wu explained. And I sent the cell door codes to every delegate's official communication channel. They're being freed as we speak. They reached a small docking bay where a transport ship waited. Jai-Yun hurried to the controls. My trading vessel, she explained. Small but fast. As they prepared to board, a final security team burst into the bay. Tai-Wu turned to face them, positioning himself between the guards and his friends. Earth stands against trafficking and exploitation, he declared firmly. Today the galaxy learns that humans value freedom and justice above political convenience. The lead guard raised his weapon, but hesitated as his communication device buzzed urgently. Stand down, came a voice from the device. By order of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force, all hotel security personnel are to surrender immediately for questioning. The guard looked confused, then slowly lowered his weapon. His team followed suit. What's happening? Ta-Wu asked. The answer came from behind the security team as several uniformed officers of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force entered the bay. Their commander, a tall being with crystalline features, approached Ta-Wu. Diplomat Kim, the commander said, your broadcast has reached every corner of the galaxy. The Galactic Council has convened an emergency session and dispatched us to secure the station and all evidence. Ta-Wu nodded, finally allowing himself to relax slightly. The hotel management and certain council members are involved. The evidence is being preserved, the commander assured him. You and your companions will need to provide testimony, but your diplomatic status has been reinstated and expanded. Earth's actions today have not gone unnoticed. Throughout the station, delegates were demanding answers. The corrupt treaty was nullified immediately. The trafficking network was exposed, with dozens of collaborators identified in the evidence Ta-Wu had compiled. As the peacekeeping force escorted them back to the main conference area, Ta-Wu saw the impact of their actions. Former captives were being treated by medical teams. Delegates from various worlds were conferring urgently, forming new alliances based on shared outrage. You did this, Neri said quietly, a diplomat from a newcomer world that everyone underestimated. We did this, Ta-Wu corrected, looking at his three allies. Together, the galactic community would never be the same, and humanity's place within it had been defined not by economic power or technological advancement, but by the simple, powerful decision to stand against injustice. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 3 days after the broadcast. Representatives from over 200 worlds gathered in the Grand Assembly Chamber on Proxima Station. The room hummed with tension and anticipation. Ta-Wu entered alongside his three allies, Daho, Jai-Yun, and Neri. They had spent the intervening days giving testimony to peacekeeping force investigators and helping identify those involved in the trafficking network. The evidence was overwhelming. 17 council members had been implicated, including some from the most powerful worlds. I didn't expect this many delegates, Ta-Wu whispered as they took their seats. Word spreads fast when corruption is exposed. Daho rumbled. His battle scars had been treated, but he wore them proudly, refusing cosmetic repair. The proceedings began with a formal acknowledgement of the crisis. The acting council leader, a tall being with crystalline features named Solara, addressed the assembly. We gather today to address failures that reach the highest levels of our governance, she said, her voice resonating through the chamber. The trafficking of sentient beings and the exploitation of vulnerable worlds cannot be tolerated in a civilized galaxy. Screens displayed evidence from Ta Wu's broadcast, images of captives in cells, financial records showing payments to officials, the text of the corrupt resource treaty. Many delegates looked away, uncomfortable with the stark reality. "We will now hear from those who brought this evidence forward," Solera announced, beginning with Earth's representative, diplomat Ta Wu Kim. Tai Wu approached the central platform. He had prepared his remarks carefully, understanding that this moment would define humanity's place in the galactic community. "I came to this station as Earth's first delegate to the Interstellar Economic Conference," he began. "I was proud to represent my world, eager to learn about galactic governance. What I discovered instead was that this governance had been corrupted." He recounted how Neri had been mistakenly delivered to his room, how they had gathered evidence, formed alliances, and ultimately exposed the truth. He spoke without accusation, focusing on facts rather than judgment. "Earth is new to galactic politics," he concluded. "We have much to learn. But some principles are universal: freedom, dignity, justice. On these, we will not compromise." The chamber was silent when he finished. Then, unexpectedly, Daho rose and slammed his fist against his chest in a craven salute, a gesture typically reserved for acknowledged warriors. Jai Yun's skin glowed with respectful blue patterns. Throughout the chamber, delegates began to signal approval according to their own cultural customs. Next, Neri addressed the assembly. Though still recovering from her captivity, she stood tall, her blue skin displaying patterns of determination and hope. "I was a scientist who discovered corruption," she said. "For this, I was imprisoned, my identity erased, my body treated as property. Many others suffered similarly, some for years." She gestured to a group of former captives seated together, beings of various species who had been freed during the chaos following the broadcast. Humans were unknown variables in galactic politics. She addressed the assembly. "Now we know what they stand for. When faced with injustice, they act. Despite being newcomers with limited influence, despite risking their standing in this community, they chose to help strangers." The testimony continued for hours. Jai Yun provided evidence of the trafficking network's extent across multiple sectors. Daho confirmed that several missing Craven diplomats had been found among the captives. Peacekeeping force commanders detailed the ongoing investigation. Finally, Solera called for the Council's decision. The vote was unanimous among non-implicated members. The corrupt treaty was permanently nullified. The trafficking network would be dismantled galaxy-wide, and those responsible would face justice. Furthermore, Solera announced, "The Council extends its gratitude to Earth. Your representatives' actions have exposed corruption we've been blind to for generations." She approached Ta Wu directly, presenting him with a crystalline emblem, the highest honor the Council could bestow. "Earth is granted full membership status, effective immediately," she declared. Additionally, the Council has approved favorable trade agreements to compensate for the deception used to bring you here. Ta Wu accepted the honor with appropriate gravity, but his focus was elsewhere. "What about the formerly captive species?" he asked. "What protections will they receive?" Solera seemed surprised by his response. "A working group will be formed to study." With respect, Ta Wu interrupted. "Study is insufficient. My world has a concept called human rights, fundamental protections that apply to all sentient beings regardless of origin or status. I propose we establish similar protections throughout Council space." The chamber buzzed with discussion. Such a proposal from a new member was unprecedented. Yet after the recent revelations, old protocols seemed less important. "I second this proposal," Daho announced, his powerful voice cutting through the noise. "The Craven Collective supports universal rights for all sentient beings. The Solari Trade Federation also supports this measure." Jai Yun's translator spoke as her skin flashed with determined patterns. One by one, delegates rose to support the proposal. Even those who had initially seemed skeptical recognized the need for fundamental change. By day's end, the Galactic Sentient Rights Accord had been preliminarily approved, a framework of protections inspired by Earth's own legal traditions, but adapted for a diverse, multi-species community. 2 weeks later, Ta Wu returned to Earth. His arrival was met with celebrations, humanity's first galactic diplomat returning after an unexpectedly historic mission. Government leaders, media, and crowds of ordinary citizens greeted him at the landing site. "How does it feel to be home?" a reporter asked as he descended from the shuttle. Ta Wu paused, looking back at the craft. Daho, Jai Yun, and Neri stood in the doorway, his alien allies who had chosen to accompany him to Earth as the first official delegation under the new treaties. "Home is important," he replied. "But I've learned that principles matter more than places. There's work to be done throughout the galaxy now." He didn't stay long on Earth. After briefing world leaders and spending time with family, Ta Wu began planning his next mission. Using his new diplomatic status and the resources granted by grateful worlds, he established the Interstellar Justice Foundation. The Foundation's headquarters rose on Proxima Station, in the same location where the Galactic Summit Hotel had once stood. The hotel had been dismantled after investigators discovered hidden holding cells and processing centers throughout its structure. The new building was designed as both embassy and sanctuary, a place where oppressed beings could seek help and where representatives from various worlds could coordinate anti-trafficking efforts. Its architecture incorporated elements from dozens of cultures, symbolizing unity and diversity. 6 months after the broadcast that changed galactic politics, Ta Wu stood on the observation deck of the new embassy, watching ships arrive from across known space. Beside him stood Neri, now appointed as liaison for the liberated captives and their worlds. 17 trafficking networks dismantled so far, she reported, her skin displaying patterns of satisfaction, and membership applications from 32 previously isolated worlds. "They trust us now," Ta Wu observed. "They trust what humans represent," Nari corrected. "Your species arrived at exactly the right moment. When systems grow old, they often become corrupt. Something new was needed." Daho joined them, his heavy footsteps announcing his arrival. "The Craven fleet has destroyed 3 illegal processing stations in the outer sectors," he reported with satisfaction. "The traffickers flee at the mere sight of our ships now." Jai Yun arrived last, her skin glowing with excitement. "The trade reform proposals have been approved," her translator announced. "Fair commerce protections will now extend to developing worlds." Together, they watched the steady flow of ships arriving and departing. Each represented a world or species that had joined the new galactic order, one built on transparency and rights rather than exploitation and secrecy. "I ordered room service," Ta Wu said suddenly, smiling at the memory. "And they delivered freedom instead." "A fortunate translation error," Nari agreed, her skin rippling with amusement patterns. "No," Daho rumbled thoughtfully. "Not an error. The universe sometimes places exactly the right beings in exactly the right place." Jai Yun's skin flashed with patterns of agreement. The human who couldn't look away. The captive who wouldn't be silenced. The warrior who remembered honor. The traitor who valued justice over profit. The galaxy was learning that relationships between worlds, like those between individuals, required certain fundamental values. Technology could be advanced or primitive. Physical forms could vary wildly, but principles like dignity and justice translated across all boundaries. As new ships arrived carrying representatives from previously uncontacted worlds, Ta Wu reflected on humanity's unexpected role. Earth had joined the galactic community not as a technological powerhouse or military force, but as a moral catalyst, reminding older civilizations of principles they had forgotten and introducing new concepts they had never considered. The original hotel had advertised itself as "Where Worlds Meet." The new embassy bore a different motto, suggested by Nari, and embraced by all: "Where worlds stand together." What had begun with a simple room service order had transformed into a galactic awakening, and while much work remained, the foundation had been laid for a more just community of worlds, one where being different didn't mean being alone, and where the value of all sentient life was recognized across the stars.